The work session for the Annapolis City Council on Thursday, March 21st, 2024 will be called to order at 3:05. This time, would everyone join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the item.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is ID 2524, Review of Capital Improvement Projects, CIP. Presenter, City Manager's Office and Public Works Director Vogel.
How we doing?
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Burr Vogel, the Director of Public Works. The way we're going to do this is just kick things right off with each project manager presenting their projects. When they get through, for most of them, it's just 3 or 4. I would ask that you hold your questions to the end. They'll just give a quick rundown, and then we can discuss before the next project manager steps up. Sound good? All right, Betsy, it's all you.
Hi, I'm Betsy McKeown, the Stormwater Program Manager. I'll start off with one of my non-stormwater legacy projects. Excuse my voice.
I got her sick.
You did. The Weems Whalen Field. So we have now gotten a great consultant team on board, and we have completed the Phase 1 environmental site assessment of the whole site. We plan to submit the Phase 2 work plan to MDE in May for approval. Construction on the field, the Weems Whalen Field, may begin in 2025 if the field remains grass. Okay, moving on. The Stormwater MS4 Permit Compliance Capital Project. The MS4 annual report was submitted in October. Our consultant, Biohabitats, will be assisting us with MS4 programmatic work.
I'm going to just at the end, just of the individuals, we can.
Where is it? It's also on the agenda. Pardon? On the agenda. Sorry. Thank you.
And one administrative note, this was printed out as of yesterday, so the project managers have made some notes last night and this morning, so it won't exactly match what you see from yesterday.
And as the individuals finish, we can ask questions individually because there's going to be a lot of content here. So I've got some questions, so keep going, Betsy.
Okay. Biohabitats is also helping us with BMP inspections, a best management practice, stormwater facility inspections, a stormwater facility database and dashboard. We are also entering our 4th year of the Chesapeake Bay Trust and Arundel County City Grant Program, and we currently are reviewing the proposals for this year's request for proposals. Our ongoing Chesapeake Bay Trust projects include projects in the following areas: Truxton Cove, Harness Creek, Tecumseh, Wardour, Kingsport, Fairwinds, and Georgetown East. This is a very exciting program, and we're starting to see some of these projects built, and these are great projects that help us meet our MS4 permit. We have started a stream restoration design at Merriman Road. We will be completing that design in spring of 2025, and we plan to apply for DNR grant funding by the end of this year. We are also continuing the Watershed Stewards tree planting program, and we have completed a rehabilitation of the College Creek wetland. Moving on to the Stormwater Management Retrofit Project. I'll cover a portion of this, and then Mike will cover the second portion of it. But again, I'll take questions on my projects when I'm done with this one. So we have started an inlet asset inventory and inspection project. We will be doing repair work associated with these inlets as we identify the need. You will see in this upcoming, the fiscal year 25 capital projects that we are starting to ramp up funding requests for this capital project due to needing to address our aging infrastructure. Okay, with that, I will take questions.
Alderman Annette was the loudest.
Thank you. You are clearly reading from something that has much more detail than what we have here as an attachment. Can we get a copy of your text that is more?
Sure, I can work on that. But while I'm doing that, I won't be paying any attention to the conversation.
Okay, but again, yesterday I asked that we get this stuff in advance so we'd have an opportunity to read it, and here we are being force-fed this on the fly, and it just isn't helpful.
That only came out today. Did it come out yesterday or today? Yesterday? Oh.
Yeah. So, but I would, the detail you gave, we're all very interested in it, but it's much more than this summary that we have here.
Thank you. I'll stay on this side of the room. Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you, I missed what you said about the Weems Whalen. So you're moving to phase 2 assessment. What else did you say about that?
So yes, we've completed the phase 1 of the entire site. Prior, we were just focusing on the field, but now we're focusing on the whole site.
Okay.
We have completed the phase 2 work plan that we need to get approval from MDE on. So that's the next step. We'll get approval for the phase 2 environmental site assessment, and then we'll implement that work plan.
Okay, so that'll be everything like the forest, the stream,
By,
the whole, I don't know the exact boundaries of the lot.
Yeah, there's-
but there's the entire property.
it's the entire property, yes.
All right. Thank you.
If you'll check your email, you should have a link to the Google Drive with the new, with the updated document.
Thank you. Alderman O'Neill. No, sorry. Alderman Tierney.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for this. When we, Weems Whalen, hypothetically, if there was a development going on there, is it phase 1 or phase 2? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, what's the buildable part of it?
Okay, there's a couple of different things you're mentioning there. The phase 1 and the phase 2 are not independent of development. They have to take into consideration development plans. We are coordinating with planning on zoning on the CNI, the community choice. Is that the right acronym?
CNI, yes, that's
Choice
right.
neighborhoods.
Betsy, maybe explain, she might be asking more what a phase.
No, this
you
is,
know-
she went right to what I was getting at.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So we are coordinating. We will take the plans from that effort to include in our phase 2 implementation, the phase 2 environmental site assessment implementation, because we will need to know what the end result will be in order to have that phase 2 work done.
Okay, and then you said something, you said construction would start in 2025 of what?
If
If-
of the
On the
play field,
Yeah, like,
of the play field, if it's grass.
What does that mean?
If it's,
if it's an if the decision, if the city makes
Oh,
a decision to make it an artificial turf field,
Oh, okay,
then that's probably going to be a bit longer.
got it.
it will be.
It will not,
Grass versus
construction of an
asphalt.
artificial turf field will not start in 2025. It would be 2026 or later.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And if you could get me up to speed, I remember this council voted 3 years ago, or we put what I thought was $1 million in the budget to cap that field. Does that ring a bell for any of you guys or any of the guys on the council? Remember we put money in the budget because we'd assessed that we could mitigate the environmental situation on that field by a foot of soil. Do any of you guys remember that?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
excuse me. I do
Lesson?
recall. Yes, thank you. I do recall, and this was my ward, and it was 3 feet of soil that had to be added in order to make the grounds usable. And I had my hand up to ask the question, has MDE given us permission to mitigate? You know, what does phase 1 say? And what does phase 2 say? And this is the first that I've heard at all about AstroTurf versus grass. I mean, who's making these decisions without input? The community is waiting anxiously for Williams Whalen Field to be returned as a usable field. So where is that in the plan? And I know there's a lot of questions here, but the first thing I would really like to have is a map of what we're talking about. How much of it is playable ball fields and how much of it is proposed for housing or other things?
I mean, I would just say for the council, that's still to be determined, right? We're going to build a public works site on Spa Road, on the roadside. We have always understood that the Williams Whalen Field would stay in exactly the same location it would. It has been talked about but not decided upon, turf versus grass, if that's acceptable. We still don't know if that's acceptable in that location. So these are just preliminary decisions that are being made around that. So both those conversations are happening now. The council will be the ones that decide what direction it goes, Alderman Finlayson. I'm not sure if any of you guys have any updates, anything to add to that?
Just regarding the decision of artificial turf, there's a very good reason that Rec and Parks Director wants to do that, and that's just the usage that she sees, the demand for the field, that a natural grass field would not be able to hold up to the amount of activity that it would see. So she feels like the best option is definitely artificial turf, but the cost of a project like that is going to be, we think, $3 million, including critical areas mitigation. So that's really kind of outside the purview of this CIP as it stands.
And Alderman Finlayson, I think that was on the back of the sort of play we're seeing on the Bates Field and on the training field where the floodlights are. They're getting really played and they're wearing out in their first season. So her recommendation would be probably a turf field. That's just her recommendation. But we as a council would have to find $3 million or $1 million, whatever that is. My understanding before now was that a turf field, you could bring one home for $1 million. I've heard since that they're a lot more expensive now. And then there is environmental concerns and whether we want that or not. I know I saw the director speaking to the comptroller on that subject, and we thought that there might be a state position on turf fields. But what we see happening a lot is in the private schools, they all have playable turf fields and they get much better usage out of those compared to some of the public school setups. So,
Mr. Mayor, I am not speaking in opposition to turf fields.
yeah.
I am speaking in support of us knowing what's going on. And if we're going to do turf fields, that sounds like at least a 3-year delay. And the community has been waiting anxiously for MDE to give us permission to use these fields. And so it sounds like discussions are going on. I'm not aware of it, and I'm sure the community's not aware of it. And I will speak to Ms. Johnson about it, but I just want to be kept in the loop about what's going on here. Okay, those fields need to be developed and usable for our kids sooner rather than later. So if we're going to plan to pursue turf fields, what do we do in the interim for the next 3 years so that our kids will have a field to play on?
Yeah, and I think we are all in agreement. I mean, I would rather see the grass field if we could get it out sooner. So I think, but it's up to the council, right? It's up to you.
Well, when we're at a point where we can make this decision, that would be great. And I would appreciate it.
No problems. Alderman Annette. Sorry, Alderman Finlayson.
Well, yes, one of the requests that I'm making is for a complete map of the site to differentiate Williams Whalen from the other amenities on that site, including the field with the lights on it. Because there's only one field that has lights on it, and it's not Williams Whalen. So what fields are we talking about developing for our kids, and what amenities are on those fields? but without seeing a complete map and a breakdown of what is going to be fields and what is going to be potential housing or other things, we don't know what we're talking about. So is
again-
that something I could get?
Again, you know, that has not been determined yet. The Lights Field is part of the county schools property. So we would be determining what we would be doing on the road side of Spa Road, on the other side of Spa Road, and also on the Weems Wayland Field. So, but we will get a map, whatever the current map is. I don't think any maps have been drawn up, any designs have been drawn up yet. We're still, I believe, in the very early stages in that, so.
The playing field, though, as it is envisioned today, stays exactly where it is. No change of the limits of the playing field.
Okay, and I did have a question, as we do the whole site of phase 1 and a phase 2, can we separate the roadside from the Weems Wayland Field? Does that have to operate, does it have to be tested in tandem? How does that work,
I think it's already in the works to have them both assessed.
Okay.
So I think it'd be hard to separate
no.
them now. Or did you want to say anything else?
I was just going to say that. It wouldn't save us any time or money.
Okay, because there's different conditions. There are already existing buildings on the roadside that we tore down. And if the issue, the environmental issue is the fly ash or whatever it was from the incinerator and the dump area behind the buildings, I'm interested to see if there are different levels of contamination there. Yeah.
There are. All the focus of what do they call them? Racks? The racks, the risks essentially that are there. The major risks are all on what I think you're calling the roadside, where the old Public Works Utilities building was and the fuel pumps are.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Annette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you're speaking exactly to what my questions are, which is, I think at one point at least in the Choice Neighborhood Initiative, we were talking about using some of this property for the expansion of Eastport Terrace and Harbor House. And one of the big questions there was, can we actually put housing there? In conversations I had now long ago with former Director Gerald, it sounded like the remediation could be quite formidable, as in $10 million or more before it would be suitable for housing. This doesn't seem to speak to this, but I know the CNI program is marching on, and I know that some in HACA believe that there's going to be expansion to this area, and I don't know how we can possibly consider that until we know whether it's environmentally safe for housing.
Alderman, and that's exactly what we're doing here. We're going after that exact question. So what a phase 2 does is it's field investigations, determine the extent of contamination, and then the recommended remediations. So we get through that, and then we can start applying for quite possibly EPA grants to help us clean up a brownfield. There's some legal challenges to doing that, but we think those can be worked through. So our goal here from the Public Works side is simply do everything we can to get the site ready for construction of housing or other use of the site, to make that future development cost as low as possible. And also to identify, because a future land developer is going to want to know as much about the site as they can, and so we're getting rid of those uncertainties and risks here.
So this goes back to my initial comment. We do in fact have what you sent us, an email, but that's not in the level of detail that Betsy was reading. And so we're not really getting a report. I would like to know much more about what is actually going on with this phase 1 and phase 2. When we were talking about all the stormwater, there was much more detail read to us off a piece of paper. This is just a shorthand. If we're going to be updated on the CIP, we really need to know the details.
I think for that level of detail, Dave, if we were to spend this much time on every project, we probably need about 4 work sessions. My suggestion, or at least what I would offer to you, is if there are projects of specific interest that you want to come and have an in-depth conversation, this is an overall program summary, so the only way to get through it in the time allowed is to do these brief snippets.
Well, I'm not in a rush, but I think that the council does want to know what's in the CIP. We want to know what is being done for the monies we've spent and what needs to come in the future, and this is not the time to shortcut that kind of discussion. This raises questions, it doesn't answer questions, and I'm sorry, but we are responsible for passing the CIP and funding it. And so there's just not enough. When we were briefed at the Environmental Matters, I think we got a lot more detail on some of these programs. We use these kinds of notes to go back and remind ourselves of what's going on. When it's shorthanded and doesn't have the detail, we don't have any place to go elsewhere to find out about this. We do not want to know what you're doing. And as an extension of that, we want to know what we're paying for. And so I'm really frustrated. I would much rather have the notes that Betsy was reading from.
You do. You have the exact notes that she's reading from.
No, that's not an email. This is what's in the email. Again, another email? All right, well, this.
So I guess not my place to tell you how to do your business, but the way this was scheduled was give us an overview of the CIP. The only way to get through that is to keep it fairly high level and concise. If there are specific projects of interest, my suggestion is we reconvene at a future date, bring those particular project managers in, and we have a focused, in-depth discussion on 3 or 4 projects at a time.
But they're all of interest. I mean, if they weren't of interest, they wouldn't be in the CIP. So that's the frustration. I mean, we can go through this again when we get into the budget.
So that just sounds like I'm sorry to cut you off, but that just sounds like a logistics issue of how much time to schedule, how much time do you want us to present? We could talk for an hour and a half on one project. Happy to do that. But I would just bring in that project manager and myself, and we would work. We would do that.
And I would say also,
I'm just asking for your direction and guidance on how you want us to present.
and I would say also through the budget process, you'll have plenty of time individually on each project.
I hope so.
Thank you. Alderman Tierney?
Yeah, I think, I mean, just listening to all of this, it sounds like, and listening to Alderwoman Finlayson's questions and Alderman Arnett's questions, it sounds like Betsy is proceeding on a plan and talking to people, as, you know, the CNI project, for example, without us knowing what that plan is. Is that fair to say? And yeah, I mean, and I agree with Alderman Arnett, that was, you know, that's in discussion at these meetings, is that we need to simplify things. We need to see if this property is, you know, buildable for the extension of the housing or what you, right? 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 So could you just elaborate on what your discussion on that is about? Could you be more specific on, and where are you getting the direction from? Yeah.
Mr. City Manager?
Michael Malinoff, City Manager. Alderwoman, as the mayor mentioned, we're looking forward to discussing these things more in the budget session where that decision will be made, because we haven't made any final decisions. Okay. And in fact, there's discussions or emails going back and forth with Eric in the Office of Law and Finance on bringing that to you all for discussion purposes, because there may be interest from the mayor to have that on the budget, but we haven't done much more than that. And I don't need to speak for the department, but what they're doing right now is what you all have approved in the past, which is the phase 1 and phase 2. And then to Alderwoman Finlayson's question, I know that I sent an email to the Director of Recreation and Parks to talk to you about the possibilities of turf fields, but that's just been a discussion point. So you'll be getting more in the budget, I can assure you, because the emails were going back and forth yesterday and today.
Yeah, that's all. I just didn't know if there was a plan that we weren't aware of. It sounds like the decision has not
you will
been
be
made.
aware of it shortly, and then you'll have the right to approve it or not.
Thank you.
Okay. continue. Thank you.
All right, Mike? Okay. Thanks, Betsy.
Thanks, Bessie. Thank you.
Hi, Mike Rosberg. I'm a stormwater engineer. I work under Betsy here at Public Works. I'm going to talk about 3 projects. The first one is a project that's under the Stormwater Management Retrofit Project in the CIP. This is our outfall risk assessment. This assessment's a tool that will help Public Works identify priority outfall repairs and potential downstream restoration opportunities. It's been ongoing this past year, and we have a draft and now under review. We'll hopefully get this completed at the end of this fiscal year. Next project is the Hawkins Cove restoration. We have Balin Consultants on board. They are completing the living shoreline concept design. We are currently in a stakeholder public meeting phase, reaching out to the public, getting their opinion on the concept. And Balin is also developing a proposal for detailed design services for the living shoreline and dredging through the permitting and construction phase services. The far out estimate for implementation is FY26. And lastly, the Truxton Heights Storm Drain Improvements Project. This design work is ongoing. We currently do have a concept completed for the storm drain improvements, but we are going to be adding additional unanticipated scope items for additional design for roadway improvements to go along with the storm drain design. And currently in the CIP, we have funding in the amount of $2.8 million planned for FY25. So with that, I'll take questions.
Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I kind of want to just back up a little second to Alderman Arnett's question, I'm trying to think about how we could best use this time. And what I'm thinking is just hearing these, one thing we could do is, because I think I'd like to dig into some of these projects a little more at Environmental Matters, some of the stormwater in particular. So we could add that to future committee agendas if we want to dig into details of projects. I mean, to Alderwoman Tierney, Chair, if I may ask her a question about what's your plan on the Finance Committee as far as getting into some of the CIP projects specifics?
Well, just a little bit of background. We did this the Finance Committee had this summary presented to us last year. And so instead of them just presenting to the Finance Committee, we thought that it would be best for them to present to all of us. And I thought from a Finance Committee perspective, would be a good benchmark to then know what we should add or focus on in the budget process.
Okay.
This is just good stuff to know, what's going on before we add money.
So it's
and
kind
we
of
didn't get into any more detail last year at this, with the summer. It was just good information to have. And then some of them, and to answer your question, it wasn't really fair for just the Finance Committee to hear it.
Yeah. So it's meant as more of an overview, and as the mayor said, we could dig in
Yeah.
as we want.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are gonna catch our ear, like my hand's raised. And then there'll have to be some offline discussion, so.
I'll come back to you, Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm still trying to grasp, because a lot more is going on at Hawkins Cove than just this. So what you're doing, Mike, is just telling us about the outflow. Does that mean that later on in this report, we'll get more on Hawkins Cove, or is this it? I mean, aren't we also, and again, it's related to CNI, but aren't we also talking about putting in a pier there and having discussions about whether to dredge or whether to extend the pier out further? So when I see Hawkins Cove, I think of all the activities around Hawkins Cove, not just the stormwater outflow. So I haven't gotten further back. I don't see Hawkins Cove showing up again in this report, but Hawkins Cove is bigger than just stormwater.
Yeah, there is more detail to all the concepts that we've presented have it's more of a Hawkins Cove restoration, not just the living shoreline and the dredging, but those are the two high-level components of it. There is more detail to what's going on there. I've been working with Eric Lashinsky, with trail connections and other play areas in the area because it's all grant funded, so it all qualifies. There is more detail I can provide. Be happy to talk more detail for this
Well,
project.
we'll follow the regimen you've set up. You're talking about outfall, so that's fine, but.
It's not just, I think there's a little bit of a miscommunication going on. The scope of the project, Mike, could you just briefly give the scope of the Hawkins Cove project that you are designing?
Sure. The scope is a living shoreline along the cove. There is an outfall there also that we will be changing from a typical outfall to a step hole storm conveyance. And there is also an existing pier there that we will be incorporating the living shoreline with. There is also dredging efforts to get public water access to this cove. And there's also trail improvements to connect to other trails up Truxton Park area, and so forth. That's the basic scope items for this project.
So when we get to the CIP for budget purposes, will we be talking about Hawkins Cove in its full scope?
Yes.
All right, so that's not for today. All right.
Alderman Tierney?
All right. I know this isn't the place to do it, but I cannot turn around and tell my residents at Truxton Heights that construction is not going to start until 2025. Last year, during the budget process where we discussed this at length, construction was supposed to start in the summer of 2024, and bond money was appropriated accordingly. They have been dealing with stormwater problems since I've been their alderwoman. I have no excuse to tell them. And I don't know how this works. Are you supposed to be like the squeaky wheel or something, like to get a project ahead of other projects? I understand you have projects. I do. I get the whole thing. I know a little bit about construction. But I don't know what it takes to escalate a project to. So could you tell me what I could perhaps, I don't want, put it this way, I can't tell them that they have to wait till 2025. Is there a way that we can push this up to what it says in the budget of summer 2024?
So that's a tough one. Can you talk a little bit maybe just about the delays, why construction is not starting in '24 as it was put in the budget last year?
Really it was from when the project, we went through the whole concept design study phase, that's all completed. And now just when we developed the scope for design for the actual storm drain improvements and everything. So for me, I'm still following the schedule that we're doing that's taking time to go through design, making sure we're checking all the right boxes in order for us to get what we want done. I've been in communication with the residents. We've walked, I've been talking to them, getting their opinion, because we're gonna need easements to get access to put some storm drains in. And then there's also additional, in order to completely or to successfully implement storm drain improvements, in discussions with the team, we are going to be adding more roadway improvements, which weren't anticipated at first, which delay some of the design. But it's still, again, the goal is to improve the storm drain runoff in this community. So we've been working through a lot of it, great engineering team on board, and we've been in constant talk with the residents, to make sure that we see the problem areas and then we can successfully implement what we feel is the appropriate design for the project.
So, Alderman Tierney.
I can address the issue of priorities. Many projects do delay because of a lack of manpower, and we're trying to be clear about that in the budget this year. When you see that, you'll see a note. There's just not enough manpower to get to this project. We didn't get to it. That's not the case with this one. It's simply a matter of the design taking the time it takes to get it right. That having been said, I think we should probably be realistic when we put timelines in the budgets and not just put things in there that are best case, but probably put a little bit more, expect the unexpected, right?
You have to understand, in my past life, if I turned around and told the owner that their project is delayed for a whole year, I'd be fired. So I think what we're going to have to do is set up a meeting with the residents, because they have not been discussed with. They have no idea what's going on, other than their backyards fall apart every time it rains. So we'll have to set up a meeting to reassure them of a realistic date of a shovel in the ground. And I'll work with them to set up something, and I'll work with Hillary. So, thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Alderman Pindell-Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess this is a dual question between the city manager and Director Vogel. Based on everything I'm hearing, would it be feasible to give the council monthly reports on these projects? Would that be helpful?
In person, probably not, but certainly in writing. We're happy to share our own internal status with you. In fact, you probably all have access to it. You may not know that you have access to it. I'll share the link.
Thank you. We get about 100 emails a day. I don't mind
I know
adding to
you do. When you
yours,
get this one,
but I don't
open
want
it
to
up
have
in
to go
Google
to another
Docs
place.
and then hit the little star button. You'll find a little star there. Then all you have to do is go back into Google Drive, go for your stars, and you'll see this CIP status tracker.
It would be extraordinarily helpful for me personally if I could just get it in an email and I don't have to go to another place to find it. That's just me talking. I've had this conversation recently with someone else. That would make it a whole lot easier. We're getting 100 emails a day at least.
So I'm offering that we wouldn't add to your emails. All you have to do is say, hey, I'll just go look at the status of the project today. And
It'll slip my mind to do it. That's why if it's in my email, I have to read it. I'm forced to do it. That's all I'm saying. But that's a city.
I'll set up a recurring email that says, check the CIP status today.
I'm going to leave this to the city manager. You don't have to answer now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Jasmine?
All right, so I have 2 projects that were in the budget last year. No additional funding was requested this year. And then I have 2 new projects that I'm not slated to talk about tonight, but can talk about later as the budget comes up. So the first project is the Southwood Storm Drain and Sidewalk Improvement Project, similar to Truxton Heights. This one has been delayed because of procurement, but we have successfully gone through the first, with this procurement team, RFP cycle, gotten proposals, and we are reviewing those design proposals now. Similar to Mike's project, it's a concept phase followed by a detailed design phase. We currently have enough funding to fund the concept phase, and we continue to await FEMA funding for the detailed design phase. Because design was delayed, it's safe to assume that the construction might be pushed till 2027 instead of 2026 as the funding is sort of outlined was the original plan. So that is that one. The second project that was approved, I think, late in the budget last year was the Brewers Hill Cemetery Step Pool Conveyance Project. That was a $100,000 grant from the state. We will get the grant approved, the grant agreement approved April 17th. We have a design contract underway. We're getting final signatures. So that will be for the design. And then if we're short, whatever the construction comes up, I guess I might be in front of you next year to try to fill that gap, but we're hopeful that the 100,000 will cover what we'd like to do, so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello, Matt Kelly, Public Works. Start off with the City Dock Flood Mitigation Project at Compromise Street in Newman. Revised concept design has been completed for the pump station. New location adjacent to the Fleet Reserve, so moving it from the south side of Compromise Street to the north side. We're awaiting proposals for the development of the final construction bid documents. Construction's planned to start sometime in 2025, and we anticipate about an 18-month construction period. The City Dock Resilience and Revitalization Project, it's planned to start November 24, following the award of a $32 million FEMA grant, and the construction will take roughly 36 months to complete all the phases of the work. Third project is a utility undergrounding in the Historic District. It's a project funded by the state. Got design contracts and development for undergrounding the existing overhead electric and communication lines on East Street only. The estimate is roughly $2 million for construction, and we'll work with the delegation on future grant funding for construction in the state's 2026 budget.
Thank you. Alderman Tierney?
Yes. Thank you. 2 questions. On the Compromise Street, what you're calling the Compromise Street flood mitigation, is that work going to be done concurrently with the city dock, did you say? Or are you staggering it? Just curious on the sequence there.
We'll see. I think it will be, portions of it will be concurrent, yes.
Okay, and we'll handle all of the logistics and all, right? Okay. Undergrounding utilities, my understanding was that there, I saw that East Street was up in front of the list. I remember Mr. Jarrell told us that, or told me that there would be, the money was going towards a consultant to evaluate, you know, who's first based on what existing infrastructure they had and what difficulties, you know, would happen. So my question is how did East Street move up to being first, or how?
I'll take that one. I was the previous project manager for this.
Okay.
So when I got here and was assigned the project, it was envisioned as 4 streets, and it was a whole street approach. So that was all of the wet utilities, water, sewer, replacement of the road surface, the sidewalks, as well as bringing the overhead underground. And it was Maryland, Prince George, East, and one of the other smaller streets was the original scope that we had in mind to evaluate. Total price tag for that came out to be $50 million. And once we got that estimate, and that worked out to be about $9,000 a foot. Once we got that estimate, we said, I really don't think that's the city's priority for that kind of money right now. Let's just downscale it to overheading the electrical, and just bringing the electrical and the communications lines underground. But when we were doing the full assessment, we were trying to schedule it with BGE, looking at some of the logistics and scheduling challenges, and we felt East Street was the best place to start. So we just made the decision, let's start there. Maryland Ave is a little more complicated because of the businesses. We didn't want Maryland to be our first street.
So and for fiscal year 2025 capital budget, you'll have a defined project then, a defined installation?
Yes, and I think it's going to say East Street only.
I mean, I don't want to stop undergrounding, but so, yeah, I look
Right,
forward
and
to
with the option to expand, but right now, we saw this as a state-funded project, and
Yes.
And we really can't do anything until we get the design anyway, so we're just
Yeah.
hiring a design contractor
Yeah.
or design consultant, and then we'll move forward once
I
that
don't
design
know
is more mature.
I haven't met with Senator Alford on whether or not we're getting any more money or not. I don't know.
We really didn't, there would have been no need to ask for money in the 25 budget, because we're not ready with the design to start construction. So we have enough money to do the design, we're proceeding now. And we can tackle construction with the 26 budgets for both the state and city.
Okay, thank you.
You, Alderman Annette, and Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to return to Compromise Street. First of all, really would be helpful to have the verbiage that you gave us orally, Matt, but did I hear that we're not doing the pumps? Well, first of all, we're not doing the pump on Compromise. We're putting them all at City Dock, but they're not starting until 25?
No, there'll still be a pump there. We're just moving it from one side of Compromise Street to the other. So it'll be adjacent to the Fleet Reserve, so in Newman Street.
So there will be 2 pump locations?
3.
Ultimately,
3?
there'll be 3 total.
Oh, because there's one in Eastport now?
Right.
That's where we're pumping the water.
Okay, but aren't getting the pumps in place kind of integral before we go on with the rest of City Dock?
That's probably best held for another meeting, where I can bring up drawings, I've got some concept drawings that would be helpful to share. But the short answer is no.
Okay.
The pumps can come in after the flood barriers.
All right, sticking with Compromise Street, do we have a plan for Compromise Street now to stop the high water from coming up onto Compromise and on around to the Naval Academy?
Yes. Would you like to know what that plan is?
Yes, I would.
We've got drawings of that too, but we could also point you to either the Planning Commission presentation, the Historic Preservation Commission presentation. All have great slides on that. But essentially, what you can imagine is a wall 8 to elevation 8, which is 1.5 feet higher than Hurricane Isabel, that extends the entire way from the Naval Academy all the way to the Spot Creek Bridge. Now, it's not 8 feet from where you're standing at any given place. In some places, it's only 1 feet. In some places, the flood barrier will be recessed into the ground. And I know you've heard this presentation because we've given 1 or 2 updates to council. So essentially, you will have a tidal line of defense that's 3,000 feet or so long.
So I did go to the Planning Commission, but I didn't hear that something that definitive, because I heard that we didn't have all of the properties agreeing to participate.
Sure. So the last piece that's really only been, we've considered a future project, which is everything south of 100 Compromise, 100 Compromise being the Fleet Reserve. So we have a solid plan to the Fleet Reserve. And then the question is, what is that fourth piece, that final piece? And so that's now being studied in our environmental assessment. It right now will just be along Compromise Street unless the hotel decides to fund some flood protection for themselves.
It'll be at Compromise.
At Compromise Street.
So everything south of that will get wet.
The hotel, but everything south of that being the hotel and
East,
the yacht
whatever
club.
the direction. Yeah.
There are only 2 structures, there are only 2 structures down there, really.
So the yacht club, where's the yacht club? How are they being?
They're high enough.
Yeah, they're pretty high.
Okay.
But at a very high flood
So they'll
would still probably flood their first floor.
Skipjack room? All right, so the hotel, Fleet Reserve, what about 110 Compromise? Where are they in this plan?
They are on the dry side of the flood protection.
So it'll go along the edge of Market Slip? The wall?
Yes.
Which side of the boardwalk or
Outboard.
outboard? All right. That's, okay, thank you.
But we met with the hotel the other day, just brief meeting in my office, and so, we know that they're gonna come in, but we have the backup plan if we have to, so.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we go back to the utility, burning the utilities, that project. So I have 2 questions on this, and partly because I think we have other streets that we want to look at possibly getting utilities buried. One example would be Bay Ridge Road to help facilitate the installation of cycle lanes. So I think some of our major cycle routes, it would make sense to get utilities buried. So my plan would be ideally to get something adopted by the council and then go to BG and the state to try to say, look, these are adopted bike lanes, major routes, we want to get the utilities buried. So my question is, like, first of all, what's the process to get utilities buried? And I know primarily it's going to be BGE and communications, like you said, right? And the second part of that is who ends up paying for that? I mean, it's private, essentially private utilities on our property, our right of way. But how does the cost? Is there cost sharing involved? It seems
No cost sharing, 100% on us.
100% on us.
BGE won't pay any of it. They'll charge us. They'll tell us you put the infrastructure in, that being any vaults, pads, duct banks, and when you're ready, we'll come in and we'll pull all the wire and install the transformers. And they'll tell us how much it'll cost. So one thing BGE will do is they'll design all of that for free.
The actual installation of the
They'll tell us where to put the duct tanks and the transformer pads.
And we put them in, our contractor would put them in?
Yeah, then we would go out, hire a contractor to do that work.
Because I know, like, when we have utility conflicts with stormwater, we discover them all the time. They're going through our infrastructure. They remove it on their expense. As far as,
We being the county, as I
Yeah.
think you're referring to. Yeah.
and presumably the city would do the same thing, but I don't know, it just seems backwards, like, because, yeah, they own the utility, but we own the property. We're giving them permission to put their utility in our right of way. It just, I mean, again, I don't know if this is typical in other jurisdictions, but it just seems like they should be at least sharing the cost, because we could very well at some point essentially say, no, remove your utility from our right of way, right?
Sure, they would say, yeah, we're happy to.
Yeah. Nobody will have to
Your
run
residents
power,
can
I
put in
guess, right?
emergency you can run on generators if you want.
Right. Yeah. So, all right, so that's typical?
So yes, my suggestion there would be that's something maybe for the state legislature, other higher level policymakers,
Yeah,
the
I
Public
agree.
Utilities Commission.
Okay. Well, once we get that lobbyist, we can.
Yeah. And we should build it into the rates for undergrounding at least, but we have no leverage. Right? Alderman Tierney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Getting back to the flood mitigation on Compromise Street and the City Dock Resilience and Revitalization. The last budget, we defined 2 projects. One of them was the City Dock Resilience and Revitalization Project. I think everybody knows what that is, and it sounds like you're waiting for the FEMA money to put a shovel in the ground, if you will. And then there was a project called the City Harbor Flood Mitigation. And where'd that go? Was that the one where we had a almost like a building down at the playground? Remember somebody?
We still have that building, right? That is the first project that Matt briefed. So what, if you're reading along the notes document, that's called City Dock Flood Mitigation, and we put in parentheses
Okay,
Compromise Street.
Yeah, okay, I won't try to reconcile with the last budget. Let me ask a rock stick question here. That project was bid out, one bidder, way over budget, and we decided then, well, we'll just combine the 2 projects. Now sounds like they're still split up. They're split up, okay.
Still split.
Okay, so where's the funding coming from? Where's the funding coming from for the compromise, City Dock Flood Mitigation Compromise Street for that, what it was at the time was a dry well. It was housed, it went through HPC. Remember that? Hello, anyone else?
I'm extremely, familiar with that design. So
is that still
it was a wet well.
Right.
So about 7,000 or 8,000 cubic feet underground,
Yeah.
with 3 very large pumps.
Yep.
And about 120 cubic feet per second was the total pumping capacity, with 3 42-inch discharge pipes that went through Compromise Street, down the Newman Street Alley and out into Eagle Alley or Market Slip. So that project was about $24 million to do that work. Not to include then the future storm drain realignment, what we called phase 2, which would have been another, our engineer had estimated at $6 million, but given their track record on estimating, you could figure it was going to be 10 or 15. So all told, we were looking at about $40 million to do the CIP 40042 that you're looking at. What we've done is just redesigned that. It was...
Wait a minute. That project started out as $4 million.
It started out as 4, and it was really 40.
Now you're saying it's 4. Okay,
yeah.
this is good, really good.
Exactly
Okay.
right.
So
what we did is we just relooked at it.
Project or not? Are we doing that project?
Yeah, we are doing that project.
It was
But we're not going to do it for $40 million. That's why the status says we've redesigned it.
Okay, so it's going to
make it affordable.
There's not going to be a housing with brick and.
It will be. We still need a control building and a generator
Sounds like we
building.
can't afford it.
We can't afford $40 million. We can't afford a
what are we doing?
can't afford a 7,000 square foot wet well and 3 42-inch discharge
I
pipes
got
and all
that.
the utilities relocations that go along with that. So what we did was redesign it, move it closer to the water, made it a whole lot cheaper, and still get the same level of protection.
So it's not the same project. I didn't
It's the
think
same
it was.
project, the same end result, but with a more, I would call it a more elegant design.
Okay, so where's the funding coming for this, whatever it's going to be, project?
I believe you may be looking at it. Let me bring it up real quick.
Dutchess funding, it's an easy question. Where's the funding coming from? Is it separate
It's a long
from,
list. Would you like me to read it?
is that part of
Yes.
the funding? Okay.
The Compromise Street was funded, the first funding went to Compromise Street, right?
Right. It should be listed there in the non-city funding sources. So you've got a list of FEMA and State of
Wait, I'm
Maryland
looking at
grants.
Your summary, what am I looking at now? Oh, you want me to go to the capital budget now?
Yeah, capital budget, I'm sorry, I gave the wrong number earlier. It's 50005.
Yeah, I got it, okay, yeah, right.
And
Right.
so in this project, there was about $1.5 million in city funding and prior approved, this was last year, so FY23 and prior, $10 million in grants.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into reconciling with this project that in the fiscal year budget, the funding was 18.5 million. That was this separate project, which we called Compromise Street.
Right. So last year, this was $31 million. This year, it'll be less.
Do we have a total of what the two projects added together would be? Come on, this is rock stick.
About 90 million,
What?
90.
Under,
You said two projects.
okay, be careful what you're saying here, because the public.
Including the garage, right?
Yeah.
No, not including the garage.
You can't say that. I mean, that's really reckless to throw out a number like that when we're looking, I mean, City Dock project is what, 55? The last we were told, right? 55? Then it went up to 90, because adding this in.
And that's not inconsistent with what we've been telling the public in various meetings, community forums, a lot of briefings. We haven't talked about a number less than 80 million in quite some time.
Okay. I don't know if we should get into that here. I mean, what I understand is if we get the FEMA funding, then we have enough money.
It's not if, it's when we get the FEMA funding.
Yeah, it's when we get the FEMA funding,
Go.
we're still a little short.
All right. This is what I would want. You got to know the total cost of this project, and you got to start prioritizing, what elements of this project we can do. And I'm sure the contractor, Whiting Turner, will be asking the same thing before they put a shovel in the ground. I mean, we got to focus on the infrastructure here. That's what this is all about. And I'm just afraid that we're not going to we got to get real on this. That's all. We're all on the same team here, but we got to get real on what the numbers are and what work we can actually do before we have another bad hurricane. Does anyone else sense my frustration here? This is a major project.
I'll take care of the hurricanes. No, I think you're right, and that's why it's hard to follow the bouncing ball, and I'm assuming that we're gonna get into that when we discuss the budget.
But all I'm saying, I'll end this, is that we should not be at the stage where we are just throwing out numbers. That's all. This is reckless. It's just not the way I'm used to doing projects of this magnitude. Yikes.
No, I'm not throwing out any numbers. There's a lot of backup behind all of that.
All right, I think I'm done.
Thank you, Alderman Net.
Yes, thank you. And part of this is, I will admit for myself, I'm just not keeping up with it. Things are changing every day, and there's progress being made, and it isn't necessarily filtering, and you're feeling the brunt of that, and I apologize for that. But it's us trying to get caught up in this meeting and other meetings, so.
For Finance Committee, a city dock discussion at Finance Committee would be very appropriate.
Yeah. two other relevant committee meetings happened recently. The Planning Commission, in its conditions of approval for the city dock plan, added planting trees. I'm seeing a blank look, so you might not be aware of this, but I would want you to be aware of that, because that was a condition of their approval. And the question I would have asked, had they had a public hearing on this, was, how's that working with the boat shows, for example? And things like that. So that's,
We'll have to verify that. That is not registering with me.
okay.
We'll go back and talk to
Look at
planning
the,
department.
They had several conditions of their approval in their meeting, and I do try to get to all these meetings. The Maritime Advisory Board asked what happened to the city dock pump-out station. And I think everyone was surprised to hear that it may not be in the plans for city dock. The harbor master was unequivocal that it was not in the plans. We are a leader in no discharge zones, and we need to be walking our talk. So is there a pump-out facility in the city dock plan?
Not at this time. There can be. The harbor master has told us it's not needed. There are other ways that are better for the boating community to take care of their waste, but we are still working through that. 2 hours ago, I was on the phone with Hamilton Cheney from the county's advisory board, just laying out, this is how we see things, this is really the way the harbor master sees it. If we determine that there is a requirement, a valid requirement for something like this, we'll put it in. Full stop.
I don't think the harbor master gets to make policy for the city.
It's not, she has given us design input.
And she gave 17 places where people could do pump out, and the commercial enterprises checked those 17 places, and they cannot pump out there. And so we
She
have
also
a
told
real
me,
difference of
she's not here in the room to
Excuse me.
defend herself.
We have a real difference of information, but this is a policy level issue. We are a zero discharge area. We need to give places for people to pump out, and that was in the plan. I don't know how it got out of the plan, but that is an essential thing that we need to discuss, is this pump out facility. The Maritime Advisory Board did not accept the advice of the harbor master and is asking, will be coming forth with the report that there be a pump out station at City Dock. And so the problem is that all of these decisions are made and we're not aware of them. And this one, neither was the Maritime Advisory Board.
I just want to correct something. No decision has been made. It can be added.
Okay?
Alderman Finlayson has been waiting patiently, but Mr. City Manager?
Michael Malinoff, City Manager. Very briefly, I was contacted about, 4 or 5 days ago by representatives of Watermark, and they brought up this question, and I suggested they speak to the Director Vogel, and things are in design right now, so I can back up that this isn't a fait accompli. We're aware and we're getting input, and that was where I directed it.
Thank you.
One of the things we just can't have here is an above-ground pedestal that the Harbor Queen would connect to at the end of Susan Campbell Park, with a line connecting to an above-ground pump that sits right alongside our gorgeous fountain and world-class park, and where people get the sights and the sounds of that activity right in the middle of this park. That was actually in our design, and we immediately got that and said, hey, that's clearly not going to work. So we're going to either need to eliminate it or find a better place or a more practical design to do that function.
For exploration, because commercial vessels come with their own pump, so they push, so they don't need a pump.
That's exactly one of the things I mentioned to Hamilton this afternoon, was if the Harbor Queen is going to require modifications anyway, why doesn't she install pumps and then she can connect to a force main?
Where?
We could install that. So we don't have to install the pump out.
One of the things that the harbor master said is at high tides, our sewer lines couldn't accommodate the pump out. I can't imagine why our sewer lines are affected by tides.
They're not watertight. That would be a reason, but we do have our sewer person here. Would you have any insight?
Well, we are Diane Doyen, Public Works. We are planning to either replace or line the pipes in City Dock and to do modifications to the manholes to make them watertight.
So the effect of that would be we could accommodate a commercial pump out if one was needed.
Thank you for that. But I can't understand why our sewers would be affected by tides.
Because they're gravity sewers for the most part, and so therefore they're not watertight.
We're not.
And they're not. They maybe weren't built watertight, and then over time they degrade.
So we are putting sewage into the water instead of pumping it across to the treatment plant?
Go to our environmental expert, Alderman Savage. That seems.
For the most part, I'm assuming they are generally watertight because we are a separate storm sewer system. You may have occasional leakage around some of the structures, but for the most part, it's going to be
But there's also an issue of pressure here, right? There is no pressure on the inside of the line, right? The sewage flowing through them, which is really just for the most part 95% water or more, is just flowing through there in the very bottom quarter of the pipe. The pipes are rarely full. Then when a tide comes in, and so the entire pipe is underwater, water can infiltrate at any crack, at any location. And then at that point, it's under pressure. So water flows faster under pressure. So it's not that, as you're thinking, I think, that sewage is leaking out of the pipes. That doesn't happen. What happens is when you do get inundated by the groundwater table, water flows in. It's called inflow and infiltration, and it's really quite substantial, probably to the tune of 1 million gallons a day would be my guess on a rainy day at a high tide.
Thank you.
Ballpark, right? Yeah.
Alderman Finlayson wanted to. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think most of my questions have been answered, but I do want to put the bug out there that the harbor master needs to have a voice in city dock planning. And I don't want her voice to come when it's too late. Okay, so, and I'm going to keep pushing that point that we should be considering the role of the harbor master and her location on our harbor.
Agreed.
100%.
We can have that discussion in another venue, but I don't think the harbor master gets to make policy for the city. And I think this is a policy issue. So not for this dialogue, but it was a surprise to learn that the harbor master was vetoing a pump out station. And I don't think it set well with the Maritime Advisory Board.
May I respond, Alderman? I was not referring to your discussion about the harbor master. I had my question before you raised that issue. So one is not connected to the other.
Thank you. Alderman Savage.
People are just getting off fired up this afternoon. This is just staff. I have not read that report yet, but most likely their staff's allowed to make recommendations, and we can take them or leave them. The boards can take them or leave them, but they're in the end just recommendations, and I think we need to hear those recommendations. But as Gavin said, it comes down to the council and him eventually.
It's kind of why we're here, right? To kind of work through these things. So no hurt feelings here. Hopefully you guys are cool too. So
thank you. Next.
Next is joining us from Zoom.
To the congressional.
Lexi Ryder.
Lexi Ryder in Public Works. My first project is the traffic signal rehabilitation. This is a multi-year project to reconstruct, replace, or upgrade the traffic signals citywide that are beyond their service life. A citywide assessment was completed in 2020, which created a prioritized list of projects to be implemented each year. The signals at Church Circle were of highest priority and were completed this past fall in November 2023. The next signals to be designed and constructed are at the intersection of Bay Ridge Avenue and Tyler Avenue. The RFP has been drafted for the design services, and it's with the procurement office. Next is the Tucker Street Boat Ramp project. This includes a demolition of the existing boat ramp and construction of a new ramp, ADA compliant dock, and a kayak launch. Design and permitting are underway and are anticipated to be completed by the end of summer, which would mean that we would get started with construction next winter and spring or early spring. Next is the waterway improvement project at Cheston Avenue. This project was completed in February, just about a month ago. Next one is waterway improvement project at 6th Street. Design and permitting are underway. The project scope includes dredging and installation of an ADA compliant floating dock and gangway. The design and permitting will be completed likely at the beginning of summertime. Duke of Gloucester floating pier. The concept design is complete and we're in the process of coordinating with St. Mary's and permitting agencies. The project scope includes an observation deck that overlooks Spa Creek and an ADA compliant floating dock and gangway. Lastly, I have the Electric Annapolis mobility plan at the 5th Street Ferry Landing. The concept design for this particular ferry landing is, and the brief feasibility study are underway, and we're working with the mayor's office for the next step.
Thank you. Alderman Savage had his hand up first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question about the traffic signal rehabilitation, because yeah, I'm gonna say it, but just because we saw the Dutch delegation yesterday, so one of the things we saw was some of the traffic light technology, as far as, and maybe this is already in the project, but as far as, I guess my question is, I know there's traffic signal technology out there that can be either upgradable or just in itself be more compatible with pedestrian and cycling traffic. For example, having signals that are, I don't know what the technical term is, but have the sensors that can detect when people are approaching the intersections. And so, for example, you know, what we saw is the active signaling, where if the lights are smart in that if they sense somebody coming, a pedestrian or a cycle, they'll automatically cycle to a red light or a green light, whatever's appropriate. Or if they see a car coming, they'll automatically switch. So where I think typically we have timers on a lot of our traffic signals. So is that something that's going to be looked at? Because again, if we want to go down the cycling route, we need to start creating a traffic system, including intersections, that allow for continual movement, right? And so I just want to make sure, since we're spending all this money, to see if we can work in that capability if we're not already.
So a month ago, I was approached by Mead & Hunt. They do a lot of our traffic engineering services around the city. They have offered to apply for the Safe Streets for All. It's a federal grant where essentially they're applying so we can get funding to install these cameras that have detection and communication. It will require us to upgrade some of the control boxes for the new technology, but if we get the money, it's about $800,000 that we're requesting, then we will be adding that to multiple intersections throughout the city. Not all of them, but just the major ones that we have a lot of pedestrian and vehicle conflicts and those sorts of things. So. And then we'll also be able to adjust the timing to speed up traffic or increase the flow of traffic.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm getting at is, just, it's not kind of a paradigm shift, right? Instead of just having everything oriented around managing flow of automobile traffic, is having them be more oriented on moving cyclists, pedestrians, but also keeping them safe at the same time, right? Emphasizing the safety and the alternative mobility. Thanks.
Yeah, very, very good comment.
We've got a lot of questions still. Who's in the best mood? Alderman O'Neill.
Thank you very much. I have two questions. I'm going to ask this about the Tucker Street boat ramp. I don't know where I should look. It says design and permitting by the end of this year. Is that the design that was most recently talked about in November with the residents of West Annapolis, or has it changed significantly? And if so, do we need to have another meeting before we complete design and permitting?
There was a slight change in the design. It was just moving the kayak launch closer to the where the dock changes shape in that L section, and I can send you those revised plans. It was just because there was a property. It was the same consultant who designed 6th Street, and there was an issue with the property boundary. And whenever we had a new survey to delineate those boundaries, it taught us some lessons learned about how we're drawing the harbor lines or the lateral line extensions. So they went back, and whenever they drew them for Tucker Street, it just caused a slight shifting in where our property was. But otherwise, there's no other big changes. The harbor master's office and myself have been working with SP Plus to get a license plate reader installed at the ramp, so that way they can better enforce, or they can catch the people who aren't permitted to launch their watercraft there.
Okay, thank you. And my other question is in regards to the traffic signal rehabilitation and whether this is the appropriate place or not. The traffic circles on Church Circle, coming off of Northwest, there's no turn on red. And I understand why we have to have a traffic circle on a circle, which seems silly. But because there's action in the middle of it. Could somebody report back and tell me exactly what the reason for the no turn on red is?
We don't have to report back. I can probably handle that one, and then Sam in the back or Lexi can correct me. I think it would be Sam if I mess this up. If we were to allow traffic to turn right on red on Northwest Street, it would back up against the signal that's there at West. So you would just jam things up. It wouldn't work, right? So you have to, because those signals are synchronized all the way around the circle, you want to let traffic come through or just simply stop traffic, because then it wouldn't allow traffic that was in the circle to move forward the way it was supposed to. So we just don't, it's because it's synchronized with the signal at West is the short answer.
So because I can turn right on red on every other intersection?
Yeah.
It's just that one that won't?
It's just that one.
Okay. Is there a possibility of changing it so that it's a flashing red after, say, 9 o'clock? And I'm asking because personally I've sat at that light for like 3 minutes when I've missed it, and I'm sitting there coming out of the garage and there's no traffic whatsoever. None.
Right.
So nothing to back up.
Let me answer kind of both.
Name?
Yeah, Sam Bryce, Chief Engineering Construction. And you're not correct about that. There are actually 2 intersections where you do not have right turn on permitted on red. One of those is Duke of Gloucester, and that is primarily because of the pedestrians. The second one is at Northwest Street. And the reason it is at Northwest Street is because either West Street runs has a green, or Northwest Street or Inner Circle has a green. When both of those have greens, then the circle at West Street has a green. So if you allowed right turn on red, the only thing that car could do is run into the car that's already stacked there. So that's why there's no right turn on red. We actually used to have this, and I do not know if we still do or not, we used to have the circle go on flash, I think at either midnight or a little bit before that. What we found out, particularly with the growth of restaurants and bars and other activities in downtown Annapolis late at night, not having the signals running as red, green, yellow resulted in incidents with the pedestrians. And so again, I don't know if it still goes on flash later on, but we kept the full color signals primarily for the pedestrians. And that is one of the reasons that the circle has traffic signals. It's because of the amount of pedestrian use of the circle. And if you ever watch the circle when the lights go on flash, particularly during the day, you will watch the speeds increase and less attention being paid to the pedestrians.
Okay. So I have a similar question for.
We're starting to veer off of capital improvements and
Okay.
design and construction into, how other things work in the city.
I get it. All right.
Yeah.
I'll send them to you separately.
Perfect.
I have a bunch more about traffic signals. Thank you.
Alderman Tierney, then Alderman Arnett.
I actually was going to be nice. I have 2 completed projects, a huge, I don't want to say attaboy, on the Chester Avenue project, Lexi. I know it was kind of comical that, these residents saw what was installed somewhere else and they, wanted the same thing. She had a lot of more patience than I did with these residents, but the end result is it's if you haven't seen it, it's a beautiful installation. I had to say that. And then also on Church Circle, I mean, it was a perfect storm. You had Sam knows, you had utility lines going in, you had MLS construction starting, and there we are trying to do traffic lights, and you got it done on schedule and on time, so thank you very much. All right.
And you saved a lot of money on that, right, Burr?
I heard not.
I thought you saved $1 million. It was $1 million, and I thought you brought it down.
Where'd we land on that, Lexi? At 1.3 or so?
Oh.
On
Yeah,
Church
I
Circle?
think
I thought you went down, no?
We did, right? It was budgeted, the final approved at Finance Committee, we'd asked for about 1.5 or 1.6, and I think we came in about 200,000 under.
Wow. Yeah, at one time it was 750,000, so I don't know.
So much money.
Yeah, but the other thing, there was concerns, I know, from HPC on it, being all sort of bells and whistles and looking, and it just seems like it all is okay. I mean, I'm not one to judge, but it doesn't seem as obtrusive as it looked like on the plans. Lastly, on the Duke of Gloucester project, does that include, I've heard discussion back and forth on a living shoreline. Is that still in that scope or not?
At St. Mary's?
Is that the same thing?
Is that the one you're referring to, St. Mary's?
So St. Mary's is separate.
Oh, that's a whole area. So there's no living shoreline
This
in
is
this scope.
over close to the bridge.
Right there at the kind of the yucky beach
Yeah.
mud place. Okay, technical term.
Technically, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the 6th Street, which, thank you, I know people are anxious to get back to using that, but do we have things resolved with, what's their new name, Safe Harbor? I know an initial set of plans I saw looked like the ramp went out quite a bit because it's ADA and was blocking or potentially blocking.
Lexi can answer. She's familiar with the concerns.
Right.
Go ahead, Lexi,
Yeah.
regarding where we stand with Safe Harbor.
Yeah, the first slip, they're likely not going to be able to use it unless it's a small boat. And that's kind of, I mean, we have the ramp going out more closer to the resident side, not really their side. So it kind of is just what it is. They're kind of going into our fairway to get into their slip. So yeah, I think we're working through it. I haven't heard any major showstoppers yet.
But you've modified the design considerably from the concept design that Drumlica produced, so it's not nearly as impactful to Safe Harbor as it originally was.
Correct.
So that's half a block away from me, and I think there were boats in those slips that were too large because they hung out, so I assume they'll make that adjustment. Another thing that came up regarding the Truxton Park boat ramp, and this is a land use side, is we only have 2 ramps in the city. In fact, very few in the county. And this may be more a question for the mayor, but it would be good, I think, or the city manager, to start thinking about any other possible places for boat ramps and water access, which could take some pressure off of the 2 existing ones, and particularly Tucker because it's right in the middle of a community, and 40 some odd foot long trucks with trailer are parked all over the community. So I don't know whether that's a public works assignment or a planning and zoning, but in terms of water access, I think it would be a worthy thing to look at. And that may be.
I think Alderman Savage, Edgewood Road, he was suggesting that the other. No,
Well, I think there might be a space down by the Children's Museum that could possibly lend itself. The water's a little shallow there, but in any event, this could be a possible addition to the CIP to look at things like that. But thank you for the work on the access on the end of 6th Street.
Thank you. Next up.
Hi, once again, I'm Diane Doyen. My focus is primarily on sewer. I'm also going to be covering water projects for Tora Burkhart. The first project I'm working on is the Witten Court Sewage Pump Station upgrade. It's the upgrade to the existing station that's over 50 years old, and it has reached the end of its useful life. The project cost is about $1.6 million, and the new sewage pump station and the new associated force main are scheduled to be completed in June. There's a current contract of $1.5 million for cured-in-place pipelining. And that'll be to install pipeliners in sewer mains and in service laterals in some various areas throughout the city. This is important as we work to address the aging infrastructure, and in this case, specifically the pipes. Over 10,000 feet or nearly 2 miles have been lined so far in fiscal year '24. And just on Tuesday, the contractor had lined along the Glendon Avenue easement, which is a sewer line that basically is along Back Creek with very difficult access to get to the manholes back there. Sewer main CCTV inspections, RFP documents are in the procurement office right now for review. It's for the inspection of sewer mains and manholes. Once everything gets through review and goes out for bid, anticipated start date would be early fiscal year '25. And this program will help us assess the pipe and manhole conditions to help determine the appropriate forms of rehabilitation. Southgate Avenue, Franklin Street, and Cheston Avenue, there's going to be water and sewer replacement. This work will be done simultaneously and will be coordinated with BG&E's gas main replacement in that area. We've developed RFP documents, and they're currently in procurement. The sewer is going to have approximately 2,200 feet replaced, and the water is 2,900 feet. The design is expected to start in spring or summer of 2024, with construction likely beginning next winter. And we would anticipate that the project would be completed by the end of 2025. Again, for both water and sewer, we're going to be working on the update to our asset management plan. The work will begin this spring, and this is going to include updates to the 10-year plan and the water and sewer asset management model. For pump stations, I'm preparing to purchase some new pumps, one for the Newtown pump station and one for the Shearwater pump station. Miscellaneous sewer repairs and replacements are done as we do CCTV inspections and reveal repairs that need to be made either prior to lining or for maybe even for pipes that overall don't need to be lined. We sometimes find defects, partial collapses that need to be fixed. Moving on to the water projects, the Eastport Phase 2 water replacement project is underway and is expected to be completed later this spring. It's the replacement of the water system in select areas of the Eastport Peninsula. It includes 8,500 feet, and the cost of that project is $4.5 million. Bonnet-Bolt replacements, Phase 1, is for the replacement of bonnet bolts on 275 water valves. Replacement of the valve bonnet bolts extends the life of the valves without requiring any service interruptions. And this is currently, the Phase 1 is currently under construction and expected to be completed this spring or early summer. And then the Phase 2 for an additional 250 valves to have bonnet bolts replaced is currently in procurement, and the plan is to start that work in the summer of '24 and complete that in the spring of 2025. Some additional work that we're in the planning stages for is the replacement of the water and sewer on East Street, King George, and College Avenue, as well as Martin Street. Approximately 4,000 feet of pipe, of water pipe, and roughly the same of sewer.
Alderman Savage.
Thank you. Just a quick note, kind of a side note on the utility, the water line replacement, which I think is what BGE's been doing in Eastport. Their patch paving is horrendous. And I mean, I'm willing to guess probably in violation of our standards for patch paving. No,
We can talk about that, yeah.
And well, some of it might be
I just noticed it on my bike. And
It's so much of it's temporary, because we're gonna repave.
But yeah,
Because BGE paid us to repave, so they did a temporary patch.
I know, but the temp patch, we probably have standard details for temp patching, and it doesn't, it's so dippy, it's awful. It's a hazard, frankly, for bikers, and I'm just telling you, it would not be acceptable on any of my jobs for temp patching after we do a stormwater repair, and I'm guessing it's not technically compliant with our standards. They should really either, could somebody talk to BG just to have them, frankly, they should redo it and make sure they're aware going forward, because it should not be acceptable.
Yeah, we could look at that. If you have specific areas that you'd want to share with me.
Yeah, particularly, I mean, I'm not all over Eastport, but the, coming across towards the bridge. From Eastport.
Okay.
So that's 6th Street. Yeah, it's really awful around there.
Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you for your report, but you gave us a lot more just now than is here.
I'm sure she'd be willing to share her notes.
I can update and share those with you.
You can just send, if you're okay, just send that document.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very helpful to get those extra details. I'll pay Rob later for making the comments about the patches, but I think we are, did I not remember, Burr, that you said by June we're really going to be through with all of this and start doing the resurfacing?
Yes, correct.
Is that in your?
At least the water, I can't remember. No, at least BGE, I think water might be going a little longer.
Water
Right.
should, well, yeah, the water is expected to be completed later this spring.
So I keep getting requests from constituents, when will this be over? And,
They're getting close.
yeah, we're getting close. So, and I do want to follow up on what the finishing involves, because in the comp plan, we're calling for complete streets, and we're calling for things like better bicycle lanes and those sorts of things, but I don't have the sense that's really what's going to happen, that we're not going to be dealing with that. Particularly, and Eastport is notorious, and we can ask the city attorney about the trip and falls. The sidewalks are in terrible shape, and I think that the impression that we had when this project was rolled out was we were going to be replacing the sidewalks. Now it sounds like we're down to triaging sidewalks that are, I guess, in egregious shape, not replacing all of them. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing now?
That's correct.
Yeah.
We're not doing full replacement. That was not in the budget. And kind of speaking to the comp plan, we could probably provide you a budgetary estimate for that, but it's not going to be a small number.
Can we get a report on what sidewalks, what places sidewalks are expected to be repaired? Because I can't walk on any street in the ward, the peninsula for sure, where there aren't sections of sidewalks that are really in very poor shape.
Yes, we can provide that.
Okay, thank you. So I think that was it. I was really interested in the sewer rehabilitation. There were some things that you mentioned. Did I catch that we're doing something with the pumping station on Second Street by the Maritime Museum?
No, the pump station I talked about was Witten Court. It's off of Bywater Road.
Okay, all right.
It's our oldest station
Okay.
that hasn't been rehabilitated.
All right. Thank you.
We'll make the case before I go to Alderman Tierney to support the funding we're talking about directly for sidewalks and bike lanes in the upcoming budget. So we had a dedicated fund, we'd have some real money to throw at this, so thank you. Alderman Tierney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you remember the water main bust, Sam, on, was that Franklin Street a couple years ago? All right, so those obviously then will be replaced in this project, is that? When I see Franklin.
We're going down Franklin, and I think Diane better to answer this. But I'll just throw this out, and then if Diane wants to kick me, she can do that. What we have seen through our asset management plan that Diane referenced earlier is we've been tracking breaks and where breaks occur. And what we've found is a lot of those breaks have occurred in the water mains that were put in around 1927, which are not by any stretch of the imagination our oldest mains, but they seem to be one of the ones that just don't have the life expectancy to them. We have been working on replacing those mains, which is one of the reasons you saw the main around Church Circle replaced recently and going down College Avenue, because that was some of that 1927 pipe. Diane talked about East Street with some water main replacement. That's also, and as well as King George and College and those streets. That was also 1929 era mains. So it is part of the project that she has referenced on Franklin and Southgate, and the water main replacement. I don't know how far they're going down Franklin, but I would suspect they're going at least a portion, or they're going in the other direction towards Cheston.
For the water, I believe it's going from Murray to Cheston.
Okay. But also, they're doing Southgate also, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to be rude and direct my question to Sam. It was
No,
only
that's
because
fine.
that was a memorable day. But in reading your detail here, I'm just confused because you have an ongoing CCTV, actually, I think you're only in an RFP stage of a CCTV survey, right? And so how do you, shouldn't that be first before you decide which ones need replacement? Isn't that the purpose of the survey, is to see how many are?
Yes, and we've had some delays in getting the CCTV program off the ground. We had a contractor before, so there was some assessments that were done, and then that contract ended. In the meantime, we have had Amliner, who does the lining work. They also CCTV, and so they've gone to some areas where maybe we've had some known issues that our utilities crews have dealt with. So they've gone to those areas, and then we get a look at the pipe and can decide which ones should be lined or which ones might need some repairs before they can be lined, or we see some that are fine. Yeah, the point of the CCTV program will be able to give us a good overall view to make better decisions.
Okay.
And I might just add, CCTV is used in gravity lines, so you don't use that in water mains.
So, and this might be an obvious question, but when you're addressing, Thor has the same streets as you do, I'm assuming you're just going to open up the street once to put water and sewer in at the same time? Or is that
Not necessarily, because we
nice.
keep 10 feet separation normally
Okay.
between
So you try
water
to-
and sewer.
So it works that there's traffic flow
Correct.
during
So,
each? Got it, okay. That's why I was asking.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, next, just time-wise, what do you think, Director Vogel? 15 minutes in, so.
We're good. We can quit.
I'm saying, no, keep going.
You're asking me. We probably, to get through everything else, would need an hour and a half, so, maybe we'll come back. But it's a great time to jump into the roadway stuff.
So
It did
Jennifer
take
had
2
the good
sessions
sense
last
that
year.
she went on vacation, so you have me instead, so you know how little I know. So for the general roadways, the 2024-25 schedules have been posted. The program will begin working on the punch list items in April as weather permits, and then we'll begin on the 2024 schedule. Thank you, Burr. We do our paving basically spring through the late fall, and we have things left over from the fall that have to be corrected that maybe didn't turn out as well as we had anticipated. The latest road condition assessment, which we just completed this year, in fact, was just very recently been completed, and those results are posted online. The general sidewalk program is also beginning to start, and that's going to start with repairs in Eastport to get ahead of the paving program in April. The condition assessment was completed, and again, that is also currently online. I'm sorry, excuse me, it's currently being reviewed by Public Works. Barba Lane, 100% plans have been submitted for Anne Arundel County for approval. After the county approves the connection within Forest Drive for the storm drain, the procurement for construction services will begin. We expect the construction will begin in the fall of 2024. Cedar Park sidewalks, additional survey and design was needed to correct the stormwater infrastructure in Cedar Park Road down by the Bristol pumping station. The expected completion of design is in May with the construction being completed in the fall of 2024, and that schedule, I believe, will depend upon procurement. Robert Eads Park the design is complete and it's in for permit approval. Annapolis Walk Park, planning and design is currently in procurement for advertising. One basketball court was completed. Moyer Park, Edgewood Road sidewalk enhancement is planned to be completed in 2024. I'm sorry, correct, 2025.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Well, there's no evidence I can read.
Rob's got an election coming up.
And the Bay Ridge Avenue sidewalk procurement for design services is ongoing. Construction is expected to begin in the fall of 2025.
I have a question.
Well done. Alderman Pindell, Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a discussion, I guess, several months ago about the sidewalk repair schedule, roadway repair schedule, I guess it was, and sidewalk. And I know at one point before your tenure, Mr. Vogel, Director, there was a nice, neat kind of grid or Excel spreadsheet or whatever you want to call it, when my residents would ask, when is my sidewalk, when is my roadway being prepared, I could just zip off the link to them. Is that out there? Is that updated?
That should be out there now.
Can you send it to me, please?
Yes.
Mr. Bryce?
Provided I remember tomorrow
Yes.
morning.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll take the link for that.
I would like to note one change, though. The long-range forecast that the residents may have been used to seeing included the contingent assessments, and they were a number between 0 and 20. And 0 is something you should replace in it right now. 5 would be something you would expect to have replaced in 5 years, which is kind of a projection. We have changed that nomenclature because we feel like that created an unrealistic expectation. If you're sitting here in 2024 and you see that your street is rated a 3, you're thinking, I'm going to get fixed in 2027, and it just hasn't been happening that way because you'll still see a lot of 0s and 2s out there that maybe were 0s and 2s 2 or 3 years ago. So I've just changed that nomenclature to, instead of it saying remaining service life, it says condition rating. It gives you a general idea, but by no means should somebody look at their street, it's a 5, and say, I expect to have my road paved in 2029.
Is that caveat accompanied by the link?
It simply says condition rating. And you'll see a score, 0 to 20.
What that means?
I'm leaving that ambiguous on purpose.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Do I have to send you the link now?
Yes, please.
Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just 3 questions, points. First, I know I have a specific pavement question. I'll save that for later as far as a constituent question about their street. We can chat afterwards. Second thing is, like the mayor alluded to, there is an very important date in 2025, November of 25, which are the next city elections. And so in particular, there's some interest in the Moyer Park getting prioritized as far as some of the other projects.
I'm personally pushing that one forward for right now. Yeah.
So. And then the third point, the paving schedule. So which I see posted 2024 and 2025. So presumably the 2024 was the fiscal year 24, and that.
No, these are actually calendar years. I mean, but yeah, it's really just calendar year.
Okay, and so so for 24, how much of that is that ongoing? Has work started on any of those streets?
We're just ramping up. We're starting to ramp up.
Okay. Okay, and so for 25, that's going to be next year.
Next year, yeah.
Ramping up at I guess once it warms up, ramping up on that. Okay.
I do want to point out that for 24 and 25, we are not constrained by budget. We're constrained by the ability to get all of that work done. Those locations are going to be challenging locations to work in. And we also had a supplement of those BGE funds. So we've got a lot of money to work with. If we're able to go quicker, we could probably add work into 25.
I still notice even for 25, it's 80% Eastport, maybe 70% Eastport. So I guess the question, how, maybe for Mr. Bryce, since he's his memory here, but have we always grouped paving by community, or in the past has it been kind of scattered more?
We have always grouped areas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we would go into areas and we'd work those areas. Now, because of the amount of work that BG&E has been doing in Annapolis, because Eastport's not the only place they've been working. They were over in Germantown, Homewood. They were over in I think they were over in Ward or West Annapolis. They have been linked together with our water main projects. So what we have been doing is we have been teaming with BG&E. They've been paying a portion of the paving costs. We've been supplementing that with our paving funds and in doing entire communities. So if you went into Germantown 4 years ago, you would have seen that's where we were spending a lot of time. And now we're going to wind up in Eastport, as Diane said. We put 8,000 feet of pipe in Eastport. That gives you an idea of how many feet of paving we're going to do. So that's about 2 miles. Normally we do about a total of 3 to almost 4 miles a year. So a lot of that is going to go into Eastport to do those repairs. Now, the reason that we're not having BG&E do this work stems back from their first work in Eastport. They came in, did the area over by Boucher, Adams Street, Burnside. They came in, they put their pipe in, and then they milled and they paved it back in. They did no sidewalk repair, they did no curb repair, they did no base repair, and the roads began to fall apart. When we come in to do that pavement, we come in, if there's base problems, we repair the base. If there's curb problems, we repair the curb, we repair the sidewalk, all as part of that process.
I just want to watch our time here a little bit. The other thing that I noticed is walking around the city, riding around, driving around, the roads in Eastport are by far the worst. I can't find another road that is as bad as 6th Street, 5th Street, 4th Street, Chesapeake, Chester. There's some really, really bad parts of Eastport. It's very clear we deferred paving that we should have done a while ago because we knew these utilities projects were coming up.
Well, but are we doing more since we're getting supplemental funding from BG, more paving than we would normally?
We're able to do more paving than we do normally. And as Director Vogel said, if we can get another crew and if we can manage another crew, then we will be able to do more paving during the fiscal year.
As far as a contractor crew or
contractor crew? I don't see us changing contractors, but if we can get another, if they can allocate us another crew, then, and if we can manage another crew, then we will be able to do that.
Okay, well, and just quick on paving, because I know when I
did speak to Reliable last week. They said, we're ready if you're ready. So.
On my first term, I remember, and Alderman Arnett and Finlayson may remember better, but we used to be able to, Alderman used to be able to shift priorities of one street. If there was some constituent need request, we could make that change and get that added to the list.
Only in Ward 8 and Ward 4.
Yeah. But it seems like that practice kind of fell away a number of years ago. I don't know when it stopped.
I do plan to institute that. Like when we get through as much as we can in 24, then we'll go into 25, see where we are. If there's room in our capacity, taking on board some of those individual requests rather than going strictly off of maybe an engineering analysis. But certainly in 26, we should have room for those kinds of things.
I know one year, and I do not remember who the alderman.
Sam, we got to get through some other projects. Yeah. Are there any questions on Sam's stuff or Jen's stuff?
Alderman Neal, and then Alderman Arnett, and then we're going to take a. Do we want to continue, or are you saying you have a whole hour still, Burr?
Well, this one went a lot faster than I thought. So
okay.
It depends how many more questions we have.
All right, let's keep going then. Yep.
Very quick question, Robert Eads Park. It says design is complete. Can you give me an idea of permit approval timeline?
We expect that's going to clear sometime this month. It's been it's had a couple of issues, and they are working those issues through right now.
Okay, so if the permit is approved,
then we will send it to procurement to go out for advertisement.
And has that been taking a long time?
Procurement has not been moving as rapidly as we would hope.
Okay. Could I tell my residents who have been waiting for 4 years for this park that construction will happen in 2024?
Yes.
Thank you.
Would that include the road realignment, Sam?
There is no plan in the current plan for any road realignment.
But if we find $1 million to do that, would that be?
I would No, you would not get that because you'd have to do a redesign, and then that would have to go through permit review, and you would also be involved in several other issues associated with that.
It's not even a park, it's a ledge.
They want something.
Yep, okay.
And they've been promised
Sure.
it for years.
Sure.
And they see all these other projects
Okay.
going by, and they think that it's because of where they are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Annette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for roadways, years ago, we only budgeted 2 million, and we were told that the expected life of a resurfacing was 20 years, and we realized we weren't putting enough money to keep to that schedule. I think the same is for sidewalks, and now we're getting more and more requests for crosswalks, as you know, because you were out in my ward a month ago. Do we need to be talking at budget time about more money for these three things in the CIP? So,
Yes.
Yeah, because this is potholes, after 30 rounds of gunfire, potholes are really right up there in what we hear about. And so we need, at budget time, I think we really need to talk about the amount of money we give you for doing this kind of work.
That's a great idea, but let's defer that until then.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Donovan Harold. Donovan Harold, Public Works.
Thanks, Sam.
Projects that I'm going to talk about are facility-related projects, city-owned facilities. The first project, Maynard Burgess House. The first floor renovations have been completed. The only thing left to do in the facility is the data wiring, and IT will be handling that. And any other, if we decide to do anything else to the building, I'm just waiting for, I guess, what we would want to do with the rest of the facility. Burtis House, project design for phase 1, which is going to be raising and weatherizing the house, is ongoing. Project construction is anticipated to occur during summer of this year, 2024. Project is being managed by Preservation Maryland. And phase 2, the actual renovation and fit out of the building will be done as part of the City Dock project. Stanton Center, the facility condition assessment was completed. Project design is ongoing. We have funding in the amount of $1.2 million available for project construction. The design construction documents will be complete at 9/27 of this year. We had to do a redesign for the construction documents because of Rec and Park's additional requests. The original design was just going to be based on compliance issues, correcting compliance issues at the facility. When a new director came aboard, she wanted to make the center more of a community center than what it actually was. So she's trying to put in a lot of things for the community, so teaching kitchen, esports, robotics lab, outdoor workshop, and those are just some of the additional designs that are going to be incorporated into the construction documents. Truxton Skate Park. Truxton Skate Park is a design build project. It was posted for proposals on February the 22nd, and the proposals are due back March the 29th. We have a committee already to take a look at the proposals, and hopefully we can get that turned around pretty quickly and select the winning proposal and start construction soon after that.
Just let you get to the end of it and then we'll wait.
And I just want to make another note about the skate park. I saw on the state legislature website that there's a bond initiative in to add money to the skate park. So that'll be great in addition to the city's funds.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager?
And there's also a $3 million federal earmark that we are in for Stanton Center.
Wonderful.
Pickleball court lights, funding available for pickleball court lights was $200,000. We did have the RFP out. We only got back one response, and that response was way above what was budgeted. So we canceled that RFP, and we're gonna rebid the design build. And I believe that we'll get responses that'll fit within our budget, because we did not, I don't think the original people that we talked to about, consultants that we talked to, I don't think they were on the original bid, as well as the contractors who handle our lights or install our lights in the Truxton Park area. So I believe once we rebid the rebid the RFP, we'll get bids that are more realistic as far as how much the cost really should cost. And we'll be able to do the project. And I believe procurement is trying to get that solicitation out next week.
Thank you. Any more?
That's it, sir.
Alderman Savage first, then.
Just a quick question on the skate park. You said there was a committee reviewing.
Yeah, we have, when procurement puts out any type of RFPs, when we get the RFPs, or when we get the proposals in, we have a committee that will look at all the bids and we'll make a decision.
Okay, city employees?
They are city employees.
Okay. I'm asking because the former alderman's son for Ward 7 has a lot of interest in connection to that park. And I don't know if you ever take when the appropriate time would be for citizen input, but it might be good to have him on there as a youth kind of.
Well, we'll probably have community involvement once we accept the proposal, and then we begin the design.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Arnett.
Just very quickly, I like your next steps in red on the Maynard Burgess house. It seems to me that we need to have some kind of council discussion. I think that could be a very valuable resource owned by Free Blacks, and maybe that could be a museum, but it could also be space for staff or council members.
Thank you. Alderman Tierney.
Yes, Alderman Arnett read my mind. That was my question, and it was, do you, Donovan, do you need help from the city council on, on what the next step is? Is that, is
Yes, I need to know what decision is going to be made.
It's in our court.
Administration is the proper route.
Mr. City Manager?
Yes, in fact, we're hoping to place maybe a couple of finance people there in the short interim, and then after that, we'll need input. We are doing a procurement. I think it's almost completed on office space.
Right.
And hopefully we'll be able to solve some of our dilemma of not having enough space, but we may be looking at that space on the interim.
Yeah. Ignorant question, I've only seen the back addition. Is there enough space in there for, let's say, like a conference area?
Well, I've been through a few times, and it's small. And the second floor is unfinished and difficult to access.
I only ask because that's been coming up a lot lately, where you need the chambers, which I know is bigger than that.
Right.
But conference room space is necessary.
I'm
somewhere.
sure
Yeah.
Donovan can give you a tour, but it's not as large.
It's probably
not as large as you would think.
No, I'm thinking something like the mayor's conference room.
There are two nice conference rooms in Gorman Street that are rarely used. In the common area of the second floor, I almost never see folks in there.
I'm talking like special. I didn't mean to cut you off. I mean like special guests. That we have
Oh, I see. Not just meeting space.
Come over and have something the size of the existing mayor's conference room.
They could be fitted out.
Further about it.
They could be fitted out for something like that.
Yeah. You know
Been
what I
on
mean?
Waterfront Welcome Center.
Oh, they come by boat.
All right.
Okay,
So yeah, I do have reservations at a restaurant at 5:30. It's my wife and I are celebrating our anniversary, so.
Where are you going?
Oh, anniversary. Hey, congratulations.
Congratulations. Thanks.
How many years?
It was Tuesday, but we're celebrating.
How many
That's
years?
just how life is.
She told
How
us
many
we had a
years?
hard
Thank you.
time.
Two.
Thank you so much for that overview. Appreciate it all.
Isn't there
Thank you,
more?
Donovan.
Wait a minute. Gateway Park?
That's me. I haven't handed off a couple projects, so I'm last.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize.
Yeah, yeah.
Please.
So Gateway Park, there's kind of two visions here. One is a rather ambitious with some permanent structures, boating facilities, things of that nature. But it's a complicated land ownership situation. The Navy's got land there that would be required for a facility. The state, of course, owns a significant portion. The Navy's pretty reluctant, and it'll be a challenging process to allow to get a lease from them. And they first have to get through their local infrastructure board. And the first read on that was not positive. So we may never, or it may be quite some time, never is a long time, but it may be quite some time before we're doing the full boat thing. Although the county is doing a master plan that lays out all of that boating infrastructure. In the meantime, we really just want to get it open as kind of a nature park thing, and that should be happening in the next couple of months. Waterworks Park, that one, we hope to get into procurement, something out on the street this spring or summer for a public-private partnership. See what ideas developers can bring to make better use of that land and the historic old pump house. Done.
That's it, Alderman Arnett.
I had two things that I want to ask about and add possibly. One is the bulkhead at Jeremy's Way, which has been long outstanding, and now we have apparently significant shoreline erosion at the end of First Street by SSA. I don't know how or whether the city deals with issues like that, but they are things that are of war date concern. So I propose we add them.
So that is, the Jeremy's Way is and we were doing the title work. The company we had did not deliver. We've just changed the title company that's doing that work, and that is the reason for the delay. And it's the same people that are doing Gibraltar. So we waited for 6 months, a year. Is that right? That's what I heard.
Right. But Jeremy's Way has been one of those things. It's in legal stuff, and we'll get to any construction once that's
Same thing
resolved.
as Wells Cove.
Sure, Wells Cove, Russell Street, some others where there's just, we don't own the property, can't do anything.
But do we do thing about shoreline erosion?
So we do. So last budget cycle, we created a new CIP that we really patterned after the streets and sidewalks, which is just general waterfront infrastructure. And we put money in it. So we had a consultant come out and do an assessment. So we're looking at all of these places. Where do we need to conduct repairs? And then we'll turn those into designs and constructions in the future. I'll make sure First Street is on there.
Thank you. Alderman Pindell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Where's Annapolis Gateway Park?
Annapolis Gateway Park is just across, that's College Creek, off of Route Boulevard, next to the State Archives.
Next to what again?
The State Archives.
So you,
okay.
So you have Grouse, State Troopers, State Archives, and that piece of land was a homeless encampment. We
okay.
We
Okay.
relocated
I didn't
people.
know what the name of it
Half the property belongs to the state, and the other half belongs to the Department of Defense. We petitioned to get access and get control of the site. We're hoping to do a Gateway Park. I've mentioned it to you before because of the new alumni center there. We're proposing a Jimmy Carter, John McCain Gateway Park, so people know a president went to school here. We think that'd be a good message on the, but one of the issues now, getting some usage there and completing a perimeter trail, getting the West Annapolis residents and the midshipmen to help us do a big final cleanup in there, is to stop a backfill of homeless there.
Okay.
So we've managed to do that, but it would be not in a good, then that encampment's been over 10 people before, so getting users in there will help us with that situation, and being able to post it with, no camping signs and things like that is important.
I just didn't know the formal name of it, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy anniversary, Bert. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for being corrected, but this is you can stay on brand.
All right. Okay, is there anything else for good order? Nothing?
Can we cancel the city council meeting?
What?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
This is, what?
City council meeting, Tuesday.
Oh, really? Well, that's good, then we can go to the library. Okay. Meeting adjourned.